Welcome to the Shadow of History channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out more videos like this one. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II spoke these words on April 21, 1947, as a young princess making a sacred promise that would define her entire existence, dedicating every breath to service long before anyone could imagine her record-breaking reign. 3 homeless boys huddled together sleeping on a cold stairway in a Lower East Side alley during the 1890s in New York, their small bodies curled against each other for warmth in a city that had forgotten them. In Damascus during 1899, Muhammad, a blind Muslim man, carried Samir, a Christian dwarf who could not walk on his back through the streets, their friendship transcending every barrier that divided their world. A soldier from the 369th Infantry Regiment, known as the Ibis Harlem Hellfighters, cradled a puppy he rescued during the World War I in 1918, finding innocence and hope amid the trenches where so many lives were lost. Albert Einstein posed calmly for the camera moments before someone made a comment that inspired him to stick out his tongue, creating the playful photograph that would become his most famous and beloved portrait around the world. A young miner boy stood covered in coal dust somewhere in Utah or Colorado during the early 1900s, his childhood stolen by dangerous underground labor that filled the pockets of distant men who never learned his name. Crowds gathered at a Bristol airfield in 1971, England, to witness the magnificent Concorde supersonic passenger jet, marveling at the sleek aircraft. That promised to shrink the world and make distant continents feel suddenly close. Jack Nicholson sat contentedly in the snow outside his Aspen house in 1981 Colorado, while photographer Albert Watson's breakfast cooked inside the actor, simply wanting to feel winter's cold bite on his skin for a while. Abandoned children gathered on a London street in 1905 for a photograph originally titled "The Future Citizen," their haunting faces asking what kind of nation would allow its smallest members to suffer alone and forgotten. Dina Sanichar, discovered in 1889, living among wolves in India's Bulandshahr forests at age 6, showed how human behavior adapts to any environment, his story proving our minds and bodies develop according to whatever the world raises us. 17-year-old Julianne Coepsy fell 2 miles through the sky, still strapped to her airplane seat, after lightning struck in 1971, somehow surviving the fall, and then 10 desperate days alone in the Amazon jungle before rescue finally came. Photographer Charles Ebbets positioned himself on steel beams high above New York to capture that famous image of construction workers eating lunch on a girder, risking his own life to document their dangerous daily reality, building America's skyline. Belgian coal miners packed tightly into a mine elevator. In 1900, their faces blackened with dust as they ascended from deep underground after another brutal shift in darkness, extracting fuel for Europe's Industrial Revolution. Josie, Bertha, and Sophie, aged 6, 6, and 10, worked at the Maggioni Canning Company, starting at 4 in the morning during the early 1900s, earning $9 to $15 weekly, while their childhoods disappeared into endless pots of oysters. In Northern Europe's freezing winters centuries ago, forgotten craftsmen built bed closets that sheltered families from nighttime cold after the fire died. These wooden compartments protecting non-claustrophobic Europeans from ice through the 16th century and beyond. A British soldier found shelter from Italian rain under an overturned German Tiger tank in 1944, sitting beneath the defeated enemy war machine, while storms passed over the muddy battlefield that stretched endlessly in every direction. Joseph. Goebbels' face twisted with hate. In 1933, after discovering his photographer Alfred Eisenstadt was Jewish, his scornful expression revealing the venomous prejudice that would soon consume millions of innocent lives across Europe. A man stood dwarfed beneath the enormous ape leaves of Puahokamoa Gulch in Maui, Hawaii during 1924, photographed by Gilbert Grosvenor in a moment that showed nature's grand scale against human fragility. A Romanian shepherd immigrant arrived at Ellis Island around 1906, photographed by Augustus Francis Sherman wearing traditional clothing from his distant homeland, carrying hopes for a new life in America across his weathered face. Krister Strömholm photographed a blind girl in Hiroshima during 1963, her unseeing eyes bearing witness to a city that had survived atomic fire 18 years earlier and was slowly rebuilding from unimaginable destruction. Nikola Tesla stood surrounded by electrical arcs during an 1899 demonstration of wireless power transmission in his Houston Street laboratory, proving to stunned witnesses that electricity could flow through the air like invisible rivers. A window washer balanced precariously on the Empire State Building's exterior in 1936, cleaning glass hundreds of feet above New York streets with only a rope and harness standing between him and the distant ground below. George Orwell-born Eric Blair posed with his adopted son Richard Blair around 1949, the author holding the child, who would carry his legacy forward after tuberculosis claimed the writer who warned the world about tyranny. The heartbreaking story behind the 1948 photograph of 4 children for sale shows how desperately poor families struggled during hard times, forced to consider unthinkable choices when hunger and hopelessness overwhelmed every other emotion. A young boy smiled brightly for the camera 134 years ago, his joyful expression frozen in time by early photography technology, reminding us that happiness and innocence existed even in the strictest Victorian era. Margaret Bourke White captured a DC-4 passenger plane flying over Midtown Manhattan in 1939 from above, showing the marvel of commercial aviation soaring among skyscrapers in a city that reached boldly toward the sky. Italian troops hauled a heavy mountain gun up steep alpine slopes around 1915 during World War I, their difficult work bringing artillery to high vantage points where they could fire down on enemy positions in the valleys. A hooded witness testified before the Washington State Crime Investigation Committee in 1952, allowed to conceal his identity while speaking about narcotic trafficking, his covered face showing the dangerous world of organized crime and informants. Medieval plague doctors wore beaked masks filled with herbs and flowers, believing the fragrant plants would protect them from inhaling foul air around infected patients, though the terrifying costumes did little against the disease that killed millions. Children rode to school in a horse-drawn sled through deep snow in northern Maine around 1930, bundled against freezing temperatures on their daily journey to the one-room schoolhouse that served their remote rural community. A Spanish police officer stood guard over wreckage at Tenerife Los Rodeos Airport in 1977 after 2 Boeing 747 jets collided on the runway, killing 583 people in aviation history's worst disaster. Danish explorer Peter Freuchen posed with his first wife, Navarana Mekupaluk, around 1912. The Inuit woman who taught him Arctic survival skills and shared his adventures across frozen landscapes where few outsiders had ever traveled before. Female. Resistance fighters gathered in Vietnam's Nam Can forest wearing masks in 1972, photographed by Vo and Khan, hiding their identities from each other in case capture and interrogation revealed secrets that could destroy their cause. A young girl reached out trying to cut a sunbeam with scissors around 1886 photographer Adam Diston, capturing that magical childhood moment when imagination believes anything is possible and light itself seems solid enough to touch. French biologist Louis Boutin created the first underwater portrait in 1899 in Bagnols-sur-Mer, photographing Romanian oceanographer Emil Racovița beneath the Mediterranean waves using pioneering equipment that opened the ocean's hidden world to human eyes. Arsenal goalkeeper Jack Kelsey peered desperately into thick fog during a 1954 match against Aston Villa at Highbury Stadium in London, searching for the invisible ball until conditions became so impossible the game was finally stopped. Tourists relaxed and took tea at the summit of the Great Pyramid in 1938, Egypt sunbathing atop the ancient wonder built by Pharaoh Khufu. Thousands of years before anyone imagined people would treat it as a casual picnic spot. Virginia Shao captured a truck driver dangling over a bridge edge in Redding, California during 1953 with her Kodak Brownie camera, winning the 1954 Pulitzer Prize and becoming the first woman and second amateur photographer honored. Young Vladimir Putin trained in a judo class at St. Petersburg Sports School around 1971, years before anyone could imagine the serious boy in martial arts uniform would become Russia's longest-serving leader since Stalin. Bob Marley played table tennis at his Hope Road home in Kingston, Jamaica during 1978. Photographer Dennis Morris capturing the reggae legend's playful side between recording sessions that would spread his message of peace worldwide. A 6-year-old Austrian orphan boy ecstatically embraced brand new shoes given by the Red Cross in 1946, photographed by Gerald Waller in a moment showing how war's smallest victims treasured simple gifts that other children took for granted. A boy stood before a fallen statue of Lenin in Ethiopia during 1991, photographed by Dario Mitidieri, as communist monuments toppled across the world and a new generation faced the uncertain future left by collapsed ideologies. Wilson Bentley perfected his snowflake photography techniques around 1925, developing equipment to catch delicate crystals on black velvet and capture their intricate beauty before they melted, becoming the first person to systematically photograph snow's hidden geometry. Pink Floyd gathered in Belsize Park during 1971 for photographer Storm Thorgerson, the band members whose experimental music was reshaping rock and roll posing together before their fame would scatter them across the world's largest stages. This photograph captured a Waterloo veteran in 1850, 35 years after the famous battle, his face deeply lined by decades of poverty and hard living, following his service in the war that ended Napoleon's dreams of empire. Occupants of a sod house stood outside their humble dwelling in Drenthe, Netherlands during 1936, photographed living in earth-built shelter that protected families for generations on land where trees were scarce and stone even scarcer. The Great Depression gripped the world throughout the 1930s, following the 1929 stock market crash, bringing unemployment, poverty, and suffering across every continent, while governments struggled to help millions who lost everything they owned. An 11-year-old coal miner stared into the camera in 1908, his young face already hardened by brutal labor deep. Underground, where children's small bodies could squeeze into tight spaces that adult miners could not reach. Selje Stadjuvet in Odda, Norway, appeared almost unchanged between 1887 and 2014, the dramatic waterfall and cliffs standing eternal while human generations came and went, documenting the landscape with cameras separated by more than a century. Second Lieutenant Walter Sidlowski knelt over a blanket-covered American soldier's body after helping rescue him from the surf off Omaha Beach in June 1944. One small act of dignity, amid the chaos and death of D-Day. 5-year-old Olga Schubert stood exhausted after picking shrimp since 5 in the morning at Biloxi Canning Factory. Photographed by Lewis Hine in Mississippi. During February 1911, her childhood sacrificed so factories could profit from tiny hands. After communists erected the Berlin Wall in 1961, a family in West Berlin lifted their children high so grandparents trapped in East Berlin could glimpse the grandchildren they could no longer touch or hold across the divided city. An ancient Roman loaf of sourdough bread baked on August 24, 79 CE in Pompeii was discovered in 1930, preserved perfectly by volcanic ash, when Mount Vesuvius buried the city and froze one ordinary day forever. All 10 brothers served in World War II, and remarkably, every single one returned home alive, defying the terrible odds that took so many sons from other families who were not blessed with such miraculous fortune. A mother posed proudly with her 8 sons during the 1950s, all of whom served in the military and all of whom came home safely. Their families spared the grief that shadowed so many American households after the war. Princess Diana shook hands with an AIDS patient without wearing gloves in 1991, her simple gesture challenging stigma and fear surrounding the disease when many people still believed casual contact could spread the virus. Lena Medina stood with her son after becoming the youngest confirmed mother in medical history at age 5 in Peru, her case remaining one of medicine's most disturbing mysteries that raises questions no one can comfortably answer. Children posed for a photograph in the Netherlands during 1904, their serious expressions and formal clothing reflecting the strict Victorian values that governed childhood before the modern world allowed children to simply play and be young. Donna Ferrato's 1982 photograph Behind Closed Doors exposed domestic violence hidden in American homes, her powerful documentary work showing the private terror that countless women endured while neighbors and society looked away. The Endurance crew played football on Antarctic ice in 1915 after their final attempt to free their trapped ship failed during Sir Ernest Shackleton's expedition, photographed by Frank Hurley as men, had found joy even facing almost certain death. Clint Eastwood and his first wife Maggie danced beside their turntable, surrounded by records in 1965. The future legendary actor enjoying a quiet domestic moment, years before fame would transform him into one of cinema's most iconic figures. A giant Camel cigarette billboard blew real smoke into Times Square beneath the Hotel Claridge in 1943. New York City photographer John Vachon capturing the advertising spectacle that made the intersection famous as America's most dazzling commercial crossroads. Chevy Chase, Paul Simon, and Carrie Fisher celebrated together at the Caddyshack premiere in 1983. Hollywood stars enjoying the comedy film's debut before their careers would take them in wildly, as different directions across decades ahead. Astronaut Anna Fisher suited up in an Apollo spacesuit during 1980, ahead of spacewalk training on a Hubble Space Telescope, mock-up preparing for the demanding work of changing instruments while floating weightless high above Earth's atmosphere. Visitors explored the futuristic pavilions and exhibits at the New York World's Fair in 1964, experiencing glimpses of tomorrow's technology and design that promised a brighter automated future for all of humanity. Tourists drove through a massive dead sequoia tree in California's Sequoia National Forest in 1951, photographer Andrew Brown capturing the tunnel carved through ancient wood that showed both nature's grandeur and humanity's determination to conquer it. Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia posed with his pet cheetahs before the Jubilee Palace in Addis Ababa. During 1962, the powerful monarch surrounded by sleek predators that symbolized his nation's wild beauty and his own commanding presence. The final photograph of Vladimir Lenin was taken in Moscow during May 1923, showing the frail Communist Party founder, shortly before death, ended the revolutionary life that had transformed Russia and terrified governments across the world. King George VI of England enjoyed a playground slide in 1925. The future monarch captured in a carefree childhood moment, years before duty and destiny would place the crown upon his reluctant head during wartime. Adolf Hitler posed uncomfortably in lederhosen around 1927, later hiding the photograph from public view because he believed the traditional Bavarian costume undermined the powerful dictator image he desperately wanted the German people to worship. Airplane seats from 1930 showed the simple wicker chairs that early passengers sat upon during flights, a far cry from today's cushioned comfort, reminding us that aviation's pioneers traded luxury for the miracle of flight itself. Camouflage trees like this hollow observation post were used during the World War I to spy on enemy positions, soldiers hiding inside fake trunks positioned near front lines where real trees had been blasted into splinters by artillery. A French woman poured cider for a grateful British. Soldier in Lisieux on August 22, 1944. Small acts of kindness and celebration marking the liberation of France from years of brutal Nazi occupation that had nearly broken her spirit. 15-year-old Hans-Georg Henke cried after American forces captured the young German Luftwaffe helper in 1945. His tears photographed in a heartbreaking moment, showing how war consumed children who should have been playing instead of fighting. Judy the pointer dog survived Japanese capture and imprisonment alongside Frank Williams in a Pacific prison camp starting in 1942, the starving soldier sharing his meager rice ration with her because compassion endures even amid humanity's cruelest moments. Charlie Chaplin relaxed with his wife Una. O'Neill and 6 of their 11 children in 1957, the legendary silent film star, building a large, loving family after decades spent making the world laugh through pantomime and physical comedy. A starving boy stared desperately through glass at an almost empty Amsterdam shop during the brutal winter of 1944, Netherlands, his haunting face showing how Nazi occupation brought famine that killed thousands of innocent Dutch civilians. Jesse Owens arrived in London carrying the 4 gold medals he won at the 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics, his athletic dominance humiliating Hitler's racist ideology before the eyes of the entire world, watching from distant countries. United States Navy sailors removed the Nazi flag from the German consulate. Pole in San Francisco during 1941, America asserting its opposition to fascism as the world war that would consume millions was already burning across Europe and Asia. A couple balanced together on a quadricycle in Washington during 1886, pedaling the 4-wheeled contraption through the capital streets as inventors everywhere experimented with new ways to make personal transportation faster and more efficient. Douglas Fairbanks hoisted Charlie Chaplin high above a New York City crowd in 1918 too. Hollywood legends promoting Liberty bonds to help finance America's World War I effort when every dollar mattered for the troops overseas. The Chicago Cubs team posed with their mascot around 1908 players and their good luck. Companion gathered before another baseball season in an era when the game was America's undisputed national pastime and summertime obsession. Workers operated a cotton gin in Dahomey, Mississippi around 1899, processing the harvests picked by hands both free and enslaved across generations in the Deep South, where cotton built fortunes on the backs of suffering. The Wrigley Building rose majestically alongside Michigan Avenue and the Chicago River in this aerial view from 1934, the white terracotta landmark already becoming an iconic symbol of the city's architectural ambition and commercial power. Diana Bryant and her goddaughter, Tear Jones, fell from a collapsing Boston fire escape in 1975, Stanley Forman's Pulitzer Prize winning. A photograph capturing the tragedy that killed Bryant but spurred cities nationwide to strengthen their fire safety codes. German Field Marshal August von Mackensen posed in his elaborate hussar uniform during the 1920s, the decorated military leader wearing traditional regalia that connected him to Prussia's warrior past, even as the modern world was changing warfare forever. A broken Chevrolet sat abandoned around 1923, the damaged automobile representing both the promise of America's automotive revolution and the reality that these new machines could fail their owners in frustrating and expensive ways. The Acropolis of Athens stood weathered but magnificent. In 1885, the ancient temple complex photographed decades before modern. Restoration efforts would begin preserving the cradle of Western civilization for future generations to study and admire. A man leaned against the bar on Saturday night in Craigville, Minnesota during 1937, photographer Russell Lee documenting the rural American ritual of farmers gathering for drinks and conversation after another long week of backbreaking labor. A soldier gazed at his reflection beneath a sign warning that careless talk might kill comrades at Camp Hood, Texas in January 1943, reminding World War II troops that enemy spies listened for any information that could help the Axis. Oxford bags, the ridiculously wide-legged trousers popular during the 1920s, represented youthful rebellion against Victorian strictness college. Students wearing the exaggerated pants that scandalized their elders while expressing freedom through outrageous fashion. A walking library traveled through London streets during the 1930s, bringing books directly to readers in neighborhoods far from traditional library buildings, making literature accessible to working people who had little time for long journeys. An East German soldier defied orders to help a separated child reunite with family during the Berlin Wall's construction in 1961. His compassionate act, photographed and likely punished harshly by authorities who demanded absolute obedience. 5-year-old Inner Mongolian girl Butud Maya laughed joyfully beside her camel. In 2003, photographer Han Cheng-li capturing the beautiful bond between child and animal on the grasslands where traditional nomadic life continued despite the modern world encroaching. A woman stood surrounded by her few remaining possessions amid the ruins of Cologne, Germany in 1945, Allied bombing having reduced the ancient cathedral city to rubble where survivors now search desperately for shelter and hope. Danish explorer Einar Mikkelsen was photographed in 1912 after surviving 2.5 years stranded in Greenland with Ivar Iverson, their ordeal of isolation, starvation, and hallucinations, testing human endurance to its absolute breaking point. Mary Smith earned sixpence weekly as a knocker-upper in 1930s, East London shooting dried peas at workers' windows to wake them for factory shifts, before alarm clocks became affordable for working-class families struggling through the Depression. A French Foreign Legion unit discovered a starving young donkey during an Algerian war patrol in 1958, soldiers adopting the abandoned animal who became their mascot and companion through the brutal colonial conflict tearing Algeria apart. A 19th century woman's silk burqa displayed the intricate craftsmanship and rich fabric that wealthy families could afford, showing how even religious garments reflected social status and the wearer's position within their community's hierarchy. An 18th century reading wheel allowed scholars to work with up to 8 open books, simultaneously the rotating device solving the problem of limited desk space when research are required consulting multiple heavy volumes at the same time. Edward Curtis photographed an Inupiat family from Noatak, Alaska around 1929, documenting indigenous life in his vast project to preserve images of Native American cultures that government policies were actively working to erase and destroy. Lieutenant Commander Woody Lee stood in Red Square with the nuclear football handcuffed to his wrist in 1988 as President Reagan toured Moscow with Mikhail Gorbachev, the briefcase containing America's atomic launch codes never leaving the president's reach. Flight attendant Wang Wenhuang fled the burning China Airlines Boeing 707 in 1980 Manila after helping most passengers escape. Despite her own injuries, her courage saving all 135 souls when the aircraft undershot the runway. Led Zeppelin posed for photographer Dick Barnett in 1968, the young British band at the beginning of their journey to becoming one of rock music's most influential and legendary groups, before tragedy and excess would eventually tear them apart. Fort Douaumont appeared intact before the Battle of Verdun, but was completely obliterated after in this 1916 aerial comparison, showing the longest World War I battle's devastating impact where French and German armies fought for 10 horrific months. The Barbecue King infrared cooking unit was displayed at the United States Trade Center Catering Exhibition in London during 1966. Photographer Reg Speller documenting the futuristic kitchen technology that promised to revolutionize how restaurants prepared food. Flight Lieutenant George Aird ejected from his English Electric Lightning at only 100 feet above Hatfield in 1962. Photographer Jim Meads miraculously capturing the desperate escape that Aird somehow survived, despite the terrifyingly low altitude. Boris Karloff sipped tea between takes on The Son of Frankenstein set in 1938, the horror icon enjoying a civilized break while still wearing the monster makeup that had made him famous and terrified audiences across America and beyond. Workers stood amid endless rows of artillery shells at the National Filling Factory in Chilwell, Nottinghamshire. Around 1917, England manufacturing the massive quantities of ammunition that World War I's industrial slaughter demanded from Britain's factories. The Statue of Liberty towered over Paris rooftops outside Bartholdi's workshop in 1884 before being disassembled and shipped to New York, the massive copper monument waiting to begin its symbolic journey to welcome immigrants to America's shores. Enzo Ferrari sat behind the wheel of an Alfa 4060 at the 1920 Targa Florio, the young racing driver years away from founding the legendary Ferrari automobile company that would dominate motorsports and define Italian automotive excellence. The Great Depression devastated the world economy following the October 1929 stock market crash, bringing unemployment, poverty, and deflation that collapsed industries, destroyed banks, and sparked political movements, while our governments desperately searched for solutions to unprecedented suffering. British soldiers stared hollow-eyed after their release from Japanese prisoner of war camps in 1945, their skeletal bodies and traumatized faces bearing witness to years of brutal captivity, starvation, and torture in the Pacific Theater. A traveling salesman rolled into a gas station on motorized roller skates in 1961, his back-mounted fuel tank powering the atomic age contraption that represented America's optimistic belief that technology could reinvent even the simplest aspects of daily life. Ironworkers ate lunch, then relaxed 69 floors above New York in 1932, the famous photograph showing their fearless comfort with heights while building the skyscrapers that would define America's cities and demonstrate the nation's ambition to the world. Farm kids stood on their family's Oklahoma land in 1942 after the Dust Bowl, their worn clothing and solemn faces revealing the lingering hardship of drought years that destroyed livelihoods, but could not break the stubborn resilience of rural families. A housewife tidied her New York living room in 1947 while watching her children play, one daughter experimenting with the vacuum cleaner as her brother sat on a toy nearby, capturing the post-war domestic scene that defined middle-class American life. The Great Blizzard of 1888 buried the United States under massive snowdrifts, paralyzing cities from Baltimore to Boston with record snowfall and hurricane-force winds that killed hundreds of people trapped in the unprecedented storm's freezing fury. Nikola Tesla posed confidently in 1879. At age 23, the brilliant young engineer already dreaming of the electrical inventions and discoveries that would illuminate the world and establish him as one of history's greatest scientific minds. The James and Jenny Bradley Johnson family sat formally for their portrait. Multiple generations gathered in Victorian-era clothing to document their family bonds for posterity, preserving faces and relationships that time would otherwise erase from memory. These two photographs captured the same person, separated by 66 years of life, the passage of time etched into every line and wrinkle, while something essential in the eyes remained constant across the decades. Men gathered to play cards in a New York building during 1890, seeking entertainment and social connection in the city's crowded tenements, where immigrant families made new lives far from the homelands they would never see again. A young American man posed with his guitar for this daguerreotype in the 1850s, early photography technology, capturing the musician and his instrument decades before recordings would preserve the actual sounds he created with those strings. A bride and groom stood together for their wedding photograph in the 1860s, their formal poses and elaborate clothing marking the solemn occasion when they pledged their lives to each other before family, community, and God. A lovely Victorian lady held her guitar elegantly for the camera, the musical instrument adding artistic refinement to her portrait in an era when proper young women were expected to develop accomplishments in music and other genteel cultural pursuits. A fox froze solid in the lake's ice and was cut free to serve as a winter marker, its body preserved mid-stride in death, a haunting reminder of nature's harsh beauty and the unforgiving cold that claims lives when animals miscalculate thin ice. He lost his eye to cancer at around age 5, and this photograph captured his first school picture day in 1998, his brave smile showing the resilient spirit of a young child who had already faced more hardship than most adults ever know. Tom. Hanks unexpectedly approached a bride moments before her wedding ceremony in Beaufort, South Carolina, on September 11, 1993, the Hollywood star running up to wish her good luck in a spontaneous moment of kindness that her photographer captured forever. A landing craft surged toward Omaha Beach in Normandy, France, on June 6, 1944, carrying Allied soldiers into the chaos of D-Day, where thousands would die liberating Europe from Nazi occupation in history's largest amphibious invasion. The 1939 Schlurwagen, designed by German engineer Hans Schlur von Westhofen-Dirmstein, featured radical aerodynamic styling that looked decades ahead of its time, though the war would prevent this futuristic vehicle from ever reaching mass production. Guitat, a shoe salesman, operated London's smallest shop from a tiny 1.2 square meter space in 1900, somehow running his entire business from a store barely larger than a closet where customers could hardly turn around. Inside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant control room in 1986, technicians worked among the instruments and panels that would soon fail, catastrophically triggering the worst nuclear disaster in history and poisoning vast territories with deadly radiation for generations. Leo Tolstoy told stories to his enchanted grandchildren around 1909, the great Russian author sharing tales with the next generation shortly before death would silence the voice that created War and Peace and Anna Karenina. A British soldier rode a horse, chows painted in zebra camouflage through German East Africa during the World War I, the unusual disguise attempting to confuse enemy observers and blend with the African landscape where colonial powers fought their distant battles. Photographer John Drysdale sparred playfully with a kangaroo in 1961. Australia, the absurd boxing match, capturing a moment when humans and marsupials met in mock combat that entertained audiences who found the spectacle both amusing and strange. Jackie and John Kennedy posed together in 1954. The glamorous young couple years before his presidency would make them America's royal family, and tragedy in Dallas would shatter the nation's innocence on that terrible November afternoon. Cousin Ed's face appeared in a rare moment on the Addams Family, set the character normally hidden completely beneath flowing hair, revealing the actor underneath the costume that had made the strange creature a television icon. A New York construction worker balanced confidently on a narrow girder high above city streets around 1950, walking the steel beams with casual ease while building the skyscrapers that would transform Manhattan into the world's most famous skyline. Rain fell on Barcelona streets in 1954, Spain wet cobblestones reflecting light, while pedestrians hurried past shops and cafes in a city still recovering from the Spanish Civil War that had torn the nation apart. A happy child splashed joyfully during bath time in 1950s. London, the simple pleasure of warm water and soap, captured in an era when many British homes still lacked indoor plumbing and bathing remained a weekly ritual. Women napped peacefully in front of a Belgian shop in 1949, resting on the sidewalk in a moment, showing how post-war exhaustion affected everyone trying to rebuild their lives after years of occupation and deprivation. Ruth Matilda Anderson photographed the Little Milkmaid in Galicia, Spain during 1925, the young girl representing rural life and traditional agricultural work that was already beginning to disappear as Spain slowly modernized after World War I. The founder of Cadillac posed proudly beside his 1906 Cadillac Model M touring automobile, the innovative engineer and businessman whose precision manufacturing methods would establish American automotive excellence and luxury for the coming century ahead. A worker stood balanced on a beam of the building at 40 Wall Street in 1930 New York, constructing one of the skyscrapers competing to become the world's tallest during the brief optimistic moment before the Great Depression crushed the nation's economy. Patrons gathered inside a London pub in 1898, drinking and socializing in the Victorian-era establishment, where working-class men escaped their difficult lives for a few hours of camaraderie, conversation, and alcohol after long factory shifts. Real men shaved with straight razors in the 1940s, the dangerous blade requiring steady hands and careful technique that turned daily grooming into a masculine ritual passed down from fathers to sons across generations of tradition. CIA agent Felix Rodriguez and Bolivian soldiers posed with captured revolutionary Che Guevara moments before his execution in Bolivia on October 9, 1967, the photograph freezing the final moments before the guerrilla leader's controversial death. 7'3", Jakob Nacken, the tallest Nazi soldier ever chatted with 5'3" Canadian Corporal Bob Roberts after surrendering near Calais, France in September 1944, their extreme height difference creating an almost comical image amid war's brutality. 9 European kings gathered for their first and only group photograph at King Edward VII's funeral in London on May 20, 1910, a historic moment. Capturing royal power shortly before World War I would destroy their dynasties forever. George H.W. Bush enjoyed a toboggan ride with Arnold Schwarzenegger at Camp David. In 1991, the president and Hollywood action star sledding down snowy slopes together in a moment of leisure between the serious demands of leading America. Sultan Al-Atrash commands respect in the 1920s, his legendary mustache as formidable as his leadership during the Syrian Revolution, a symbol of defiance against foreign control that inspired resistance across the Arab world. German soldiers smile as they seize control of Warsaw's Wola district in August 1944, their grins masking the horror of 50,000 Poles massacred within a week on Heinrich Himmler's orders during the uprising's suppression. Dancers embrace on Poniatowka Beach along the Vistula River in early 1930s, Warsaw Leon Jarumski, capturing a carefree moment of tango beneath the Poniatowski Bridge, where music and motion eclipsed the troubles gathering across Europe. The Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building collapses into rubble on April 19, 1995. A fertilizer truck bomb claiming 168 lives, including 19 children, shattering Oklahoma City's sense of safety forever. The Apollo 11 command module is carefully loaded into a Super Guppy aircraft at Ellington Air Force Base in 1969, the vessel that carried humanity to the moon, now transported home as a priceless relic. The American embassy in Beirut lies in ruins after the April 18, 1983. Suicide bombing killed 63 people, including 17 Americans, an attack that exposed the deadly vulnerability of diplomatic missions in Lebanon's civil war. Audrey Hepburn reviews a script for the United Nations Children's Fund around 1953, her dedication to humanitarian work shining through long before her film career made her an icon beloved by millions worldwide. The California Cycleway towers above Pasadena, around 1900, an elevated tollway built during the cycling craze of the 1890s, a bold experiment in transportation that ultimately fell victim to changing times and priorities. The Carpathia lowers Titanic's lifeboats at White Star Line Pier 59 in New York on April 18, 1912, before delivering 705 survivors to Cunard Pier 54, their rescue a glimmer of hope. The Dalai Lama and Pope John Paul II meet in Rome in 1982, two spiritual leaders from vastly different traditions sharing a moment of mutual respect and common purpose in a world hungry for peace and understanding. The East Bay Dragons cruise California in the 1960s, their motorcycles roaring as the first African-American motorcycle club in the region, breaking barriers and redefining who belonged on the open road with power and pride. The Elephant and Castle Junction bustles in London in 1890, its distinctive architecture and busy streets, a hub of Victorian commerce where countless lives intersected daily in the heart of the expanding metropolis below. The English football team raises their arms in Nazi salute before 110,000 spectators, including Göring Hess and Goebbels, at Berlin's Olympiastadion in May 1938, a shameful gesture of appeasement before kickoff. The British Grand Fleet assembles in overwhelming force for the King's Review on July 18, 1914, unaware that within weeks these warships would be thrust into the Great War that would change naval warfare forever. The Greek destroyer Adrius limps into Alexandria harbor on December 6, 1943, her hull torn open by a mine off the Dodecanese Islands, yet still afloat thanks to her crew's determination and skill. The Hindenburg drifts majestically over Manhattan in 1936 or 37, the massive airship a symbol of technological triumph and human ambition that would soon become a haunting reminder of how quickly glory turns to tragedy. The Italian battleship Sicilia rests in Italian waters around 1900 with her sister ship Sardegna, nearby the Regia Marina's ironclad fleet, representing the nation's ambitions to command the Mediterranean and project power across its waters. Enrico Fermi sits beside his wife Laura Capon in his Los Alamos office in 1954, the brilliant physicist who unlocked atomic energy, now contemplating the weight of his discoveries and their consequences for humanity. 9 European monarchs gather for the funeral of Edward VII in 1910, their final assembly before the Great War tore apart their family ties and swept away thrones that had stood for centuries across the continent. The Lincoln Memorial rises incomplete in Washington, D.C. in 1917, construction crews shaping the monument that would honor the president who preserved the Union and whose legacy would inspire generations seeking justice and freedom. The new Greek government marches triumphantly into Athens on October 18, 1944. Liberation finally arriving after years of brutal occupation, but the joy would soon be shadowed by the Civil War that followed closely behind. New Zealand trade delegates explore an Atlas Copco test mine in Sweden in 1977, their technical, mission-seeking, innovative mining methods that could be brought home to improve safety and efficiency in their own industry. Ottoman forces formally surrendered Jerusalem in 1917, the ancient city changing hands once more as the British advance continues altering the course of Middle Eastern history and redrawing maps that would spark conflicts for generations. Polish soldiers raised their flag over Berlin on May 2, 1945, a powerful moment of triumph for a nation that suffered immeasurable devastation, their capital destroyed, while they fought across Europe to reach this final victory. The Queen Mary dominates Southampton's harbor in the 1940s, her massive hull a symbol of maritime elegance and power, soon to be transformed into a troopship. While carrying thousands across the Atlantic toward uncertain fates in war,